Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Investor Financing Podcast. We have a fantastic guest today. We're going to dive in and talk about wholesaling, owning rental properties, his mastermind group, and just the overall background of how he got into real estate. It's going to be. I have a lot of questions on where he thinks the market is. He's
Yeah.
located in Spokane, correct?
Yep.
Spokane, Washington.
Spokane, Washington. Yep.
So yeah, I'm just interested in the Washington market. It's interesting. Some markets, people, they're not getting hit. But here in Las Vegas, where I'm at right now, our median price went from 485. I think we're at 420 something. It's down 60K in the last 4 months. Okay, so there's
Wow.
definitely, I don't know what that is. It's 12%, a little larger than 12% drop, right, in medium home price. That's pretty significant. So, and the other thing is too, here in Las Vegas, 47% of the active listings are vacant properties. So those are probably iBuyers. So I think the markets with a lot of the iBuyers and so forth, and like Vegas is always a boom bust kind of market. But I also heard
Sure.
that Seattle was getting crushed too, because that was one of the hottest appreciating markets for year over year over year. I think those type of markets are getting hit the most. So it's gonna be interesting. I know Spokane's a little bit different, but it'd be interesting to dive in. So please welcome Dan Austin to the show. I met him through a mastermind group called Abundance. He's also the co-host or the host of Collecting Keys podcast, and he runs a real estate coaching mastermind. He does a lot of off market and wholesaling, flipping, and buy and hold type of business. I was listening to one of your podcasts about one of your properties, a short-term rental property, and it was cool.
God.
What I like about your podcast, what I listened to so far, was like you guys were being honest. Like, hey, this is everybody out there. We always hear these success stories about how everybody's crushing it. And like, the truth is we know that there might be the 1% of real estate investors that never have problems, but 99% of us, if you own real estate and you do it for a long enough time, you're going to buy a bad property. You're going to own a property that is like a terrible rental property. You're going to do a flip that you should have never done. I mean, that's just the way business is done. I mean, look at when you go up to bat, there's nobody that bats 1,000%, right?
That's so true.
Whatever. I don't even know baseball, but whatever your average at bat is. But the point is that I think there needs to be more transparency in real estate investing, because it's not as easy as everybody makes it seem. Totally. And now that the funny thing is now, because I was around, I'm an older guy turning 45 today, but the funny thing is like the market starts pivoting, right? Now these flippers are starting to lose money. You're seeing it all over the place. And it's like, we haven't even seen what 2008 has done. So there's a lot of people that were riding the wave and like they couldn't do wrong. I know a bunch of properties I flipped a couple years back. Like I made money because the market appreciated. I would have broken even. So the market saves our butt a lot of times. And then in these markets, this is where you really got to be strong, and the strong survive. Same thing with real estate agents out there.
Totally.
A lot of people are going to be out of the business. So it's going to be good to get your feedback. So Dan, why don't you take us back to like your start in real estate? What were you doing before real estate, and bring us into today, what your business looks like?
I would love to, man. You got a lot of points. We're gonna have a great conversation. I'm like taking notes, like, ooh, that reminds me of this, that reminds me of that. We got lots of good stuff to talk about. So I always start back with my journey. I always feel like my journey began right when I joined the military out of high school, because it kind of changed who I was, changed my trajectory in life, and kind of gave me purpose and direction. And I feel like set me up for success as opposed to where I was coming from at that time in my life. And so, did that for 8 years and left because I had this goal to be the first one in my family to get a college degree. And so, which I still am the only one in my family to get a college degree. And I have post-grad education, MBA, and some engineering master's programs as well under my belt. So a ton of education that I don't really care about and I don't freaking use. So I got a degree in electrical engineering, started out after the military, after college, got a job as an electrical engineer, realized that it's not really my thing. I can do it. And I was actually not bad at it. But the problem was I just happened to be smart enough to get the degree. Doesn't mean you have passion for it. And anyways, pivoted out of that and started going down more of a leadership track where I was able to find some synergies from my time in the military as a leader, leading people in combat, doing all that, to leading people in corporate America. So started climbing the rungs of the corporate ladder, and then realized that it wasn't really that hard to do like really good in corporate America. Like I could put like 50% effort into it and still get accolades for doing a good job. And that's not speaking to like how great I am. That's just speaking to how average corporate America is. And so anyhow, I started finding myself having like this itch or this urge or this need to like, I don't know, I would call it like this creative outlet that I wasn't getting at my day job. And I also knew that I had some pretty high goals as far as like financial freedom and stuff like that. I just didn't know how to do it. So I just dove right in, ran into a guy who's one of my good friends now today, who got me into real estate investing. He was doing it on a small level with student rentals. So I bought my first student rental, and this happened to be in, I think, 2016. And all of a sudden I got a rent check. And after all of my maintenance and all of my bills, I was like cash flow positive $800 on this one single family home. And I was like, that is badass. And I started doing the math. I was like, okay, if I could get to $1,000 of cash flow a month, and I did this 10 times, like, let's try to do this once a year, 10 times, it's $10,000 a month. Man, I was like, I'll be set. I'll never have to work a day in my life, which $10,000 a month is great, but now I want more. So anyways, about 1 year later, the house next door, the lady had passed away. She was an older lady, passed away in her sleep. And the family came to me and said, hey, we'd like to sell you the house. So man, I'm on track, right? I got my second one, loving it. Did a full BRRRR rehab on that one. I had actually been listening to Bigger Pockets at that time and kind of finally learned about what the BRRRR was, and thought that was cool. And then I started putting offers on houses. And I was just using excess income from my W-2 and then any excess cash flow that I would have from my 2 rental properties at the time to put it down payments, typical 20, 25% down payment type things. And anyhow, like I couldn't get any offers accepted because I had this model in my head of what I should be paying for these houses. And anyhow, at that point in time, a friend of mine from college, who's my current business partner now, approached me, and he had started doing some flipping, a few buy and holds as well at the same time. And he said, hey, neither of us are like adding to our portfolio, and we really want to, like, we have goals to grow these things. What if we kind of combine forces? And he basically pitched to me the idea of a wholesaling company, like an off-market real estate direct mail company, direct to seller company rather. And I was like, okay, sure. Like, let's do it. It's better than what I'm doing now, which is not making any progress. And so we came together. This was late 2019, and we started marketing direct to sellers in early 2020, March. Actually, was our first mail, which is when everything shut down, which was kind of funny because we didn't know. And COVID was, running, full speed ahead. And we just kept marketing and just kept going deeper in the hole and deeper in the hole until we finally got a deal under contract. And as they say, the rest from there was history. And we've done almost a couple hundred transactions, 150, 200 transactions between then and now. And I think we're up to like combined 45, 48 doors between the two of us in our business. And we started a coaching business where we're, coaching other folks how to do this, which has morphed into a partnership program where we actually partner with other folks and we basically become their acquisitions and marketing arm of their business so that they can go direct to seller as well, but they don't have to learn and spend all the money to build the systems. And then we started what I would call a boutique hard money lending company. And what else did we do? We've got our podcast, as you mentioned, Collecting Keys podcast, where again, we just talk about the like ins and outs of somebody like us, the wins, the losses, the no bullshit about real estate, how we got to where we're at, and what people can do to kind of do what we're doing. And we pull no punches. It's like all real. And all of those things I just said since 2020 started because we had needs, right? Lending, like we had some extra money, but we also needed money for our business. So we started a small lending business that would work around our business. The partnership program, along with the coaching program, started because we were expanding nationally. And what we found was like we were really good at the marketing piece and the acquisitions piece. And so we knew we could teach that to other people. But then the part of the dispositions and selling of the property, when you don't know local buyers personally, became really challenging. So we said, why don't we like cut that piece out and give the profits to a partner, and we can basically just do their sales, their acquisitions, their marketing for them, because we're really good at that. So that business kind of morphed into that so that we could continue to grow. And anyhow, That's a lot. I'll just stop right there.
So that's crazy. So like in the last 2 years, you guys have been averaging like 100 plus wholesale deals.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That's
the first year was not that big because I guess the first year, 2020, was a shorter year for us too, anyways. But yeah, we've kind of slowly like ramped up to where we're at now.
that's crazy that you've
Yeah.
done that much volume in such a short period of time. Once you guys got proof and like you're like this will work,
Yeah.
and then you put gasoline on it. And
Oh
so
yeah.
what have you found if somebody's listening? Because I think wholesale is probably like that's one thing that I've never been involved in. I've been a real
Mm-hmm.
estate broker, hard money lender,
Yep.
broker, but
Yep.
wholesaling to me, I just never got it. And I was like,
Yep.
that's probably like the best business to be in because it's fast, it's
Mm-hmm.
transactional. You make the money and then just put it into rental properties. It makes sense
Yep.
to me. Like,
Yep.
what's your advice for somebody out there? Like, where do you see the most traction coming from? Like, if somebody had like a little bit of cash and like,
Mm-hmm.
would it be mailing? What would it be?
Yeah. This is going to be really easy for me to answer because like our bread and butter that has worked time and time again is direct mail. It's the most expensive and people are like, that doesn't work. There's no way that works. You send a letter to somebody and they sell you their house. And my rebuttal is, yeah, there's guys out there texting people and selling their house. People will sell you their house when you market to them. Mail, though, helps weed out all of the kind of the crap leads or the people that are just calling you to say F you. Because if you think about it, like you have several ways to market to people, just like any business. You have direct mail is the big one. You have cold calling is a big one. You have texting right now is a big one. Those are like the three main ways. You have SEO and all that sort of stuff online too. But when you're cold calling somebody, nobody likes to get cold called. And nobody likes to get random texts, especially now we're getting so many spam texts from people. But those people, a lot of the responses are going to be like, F you, leave me alone. Or they're going to be just kind of like, yeah, sure. You called me. I'll play along a little bit, but I'm not actually interested in selling because you called me. To where when you send them a letter, those people have to raise their hand and say, hey, yeah, actually, I'm going to take time out of my day to call this phone number on here and talk to you because I actually have a need. And we're for any of those platforms, the way you're marketing to these people, you're going to be looking at a list, right? Absentee owner, meaning they're landlords. You're going to be looking at anybody that's like bankruptcy, pre-foreclosures, liens, anybody that has a reason to sell or would want to sell, not necessarily financial distress, but also, they're just a tired landlord. Like, I don't want to deal with this anymore, that's where we caught like I would say like tailwinds during COVID was because there's a lot of landlords that people weren't paying their rent. So that's how we really started buying stuff really fast and we didn't know that's just kind of how it happened for us. That wasn't our plan. But anyhow, I would say direct mail, best way because they're the easiest leads. And if you're doing it as a side hustle, you don't have to sit there and cold call people all day. You can actually set up like we have a call service or an answering service that intakes calls and they kind of weed out any solicitors or anybody saying, take me off the list. They weed those out. So we get into our CRM motivated people that actually want to have a conversation and we can call them back. We don't have to be right there on the phone.
So did you first start local? Then are you now buying in other markets? What does that look like?
Yeah. So we started local in our home market of Spokane, North Idaho as well. We did some of that. And then we were like, okay, let's move out. And I think the next market we did was Knoxville, Tennessee. And there wasn't anything in particular that reason why we picked Knoxville other than we necked it down to like 10 markets. And we were just looking at the population size, the average sale price, all that stuff. So we looked at the data and we started wholesaling there. And then we did a virtual flip there, made like 30 grand on it. It was like, we're like, okay, this is pretty sweet. And then we actually went to the next virtual market we did was Chicago. And that was going well, got several deals under contract. But at that point, we kind of started figuring out that we don't really want to flip houses virtually. We can make the money, but it's a lot of work. And B, we don't really want to own houses like us personally, nothing wrong with it. We just didn't want to own houses all over the country just because then you have like this management nightmare. We're like, you know what, we're able to build a portfolio, like a pretty sweet portfolio where we're at, like we're doing good with that. Like, let's just dedicate our time and effort to that. And so that's where we kind of morph to, yeah, let's go to these other markets, but let's not even wholesale it ourselves. Let's partner with somebody. And then let's not flip anything. Like, let's just find good quality partners and actually vet them out and work with them directly.
That's great. That's a good,
yeah.
So you're buying local. Most of the buy and holds, is that long term, and just are you
Yeah.
scattering in some short term and midterm type
No,
properties?
no, we have two, as you alluded to, we have two short-term rentals in our market. By the way, it's not like a vacation town, right? There's not, we're probably 500,000 people. We're, a secondary market to Seattle. So short-term rentals do work really well. But like, we're not going to be pulling in $50,000 a year, whatever some of these STR guys quote on their stuff that are on the ocean or near, the Smokies or all those sorts of places. But everything else, like we're basic, we love long-term rentals. And then we have small multis and single family homes.
That's good.
Yeah.
How are you pivoting with this new market? Are you more excited now because a lot of people seem to be kind of scared
Right.
and maybe not, they're pulling back? Are you going in deeper? And also, are
Right.
you looking at different markets now that is there like one or two markets that you're not in right now that you think you might be in
Right.
if you'll share to a high level?
Yeah. So it's funny because that's a tough question for me to answer because we're the market's pivoting. And so of course we see opportunity, definitely. But we as investors are also pivoting. Like, we've gotten to a point to where we have more money than we used to have. We have pretty steady, good, active and passive income coming in. And now we're like looking at bigger things like larger multifamily, commercial, triple net. We're even kind of starting to think about development on some things like small land development. So we are, as investors, are pivoting. However, to answer your question more directly, we're still going. We're still like marketing. We're still doing our business. We're still looking. What we are doing, though, as far as our marketing goes, is we are being very targeted and specific to, we want to buy multifamily in our home market. We have found, as we looked backwards, we have found that those have been our best performing assets from a asset appreciation standpoint and from a cash flow standpoint, and also just kind of a little bit less of a headache for us because there's more units under one roof. So we are targeting those types of deals, which means we're going to probably do less deals. And also part of that is we feel like we've graduated from the single family flipping and wholesaling business where we're just not that interested in it anymore. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But in our home market here in Spokane, we don't have like big institutional buyers like iBuyers, and we don't have anybody that's like a super sophisticated flipping company. The one that we had that was like the biggest one in town, I think they were flipping well over 100 houses, 150 houses a year probably. And they are basically non-existent anymore. Like, their business model, they were not resilient enough to continue to operate without losing like seven figures. And so they're probably just not going to operate anymore. So we just don't have that from a wholesaling side. Like, if we went down to Vegas, for example, there is a large house flipping community down there, a large investor presence. And now it might not be, like you said, your prices are going down probably pretty rapidly. It's a boom and bust market. However, because of that, you have some pretty big investors that know how to play the game and are just a little bit better, higher quality of a buyer from a wholesaler's perspective. So that's another reason why we're not going after single family homes anymore in our market. And we're probably not going to flip too much. We'll be opportunistic and take advantage of them. Yes. But that's not going to be our target demographic anymore.
So when you say you're targeting, so then does that mean you're targeting duplexes, fourplexes, fiveplexes, and you're mailing to them like you normally would? And then instead of like, I'm going to dispo this, you're going to put it in your portfolio.
Absolutely.
If it makes sense.
Yeah. We're going to look for anything like 30 or 40 units and below. And that's the other thing is too, again, we've graduated, we know more people with more money, so we can raise capital for these deals. And we personally have more experience, more time, more money to take down these deals. So it just makes more sense for us to pivot and start putting zeros behind our deals.
Cool. So you're coaching, your real estate coaching mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? So basically you had created all this infrastructure for mailing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say somebody's in some different market, they get into your mastermind. What does that look like for that person?
Yeah. So we have several tiers within that program. And the way it works is we're building all these SOPs for our business. As we would hire people, we'd bring on virtuals and new, acquisition managers and all that. We had all these like systems and SOPs, and people would ask us questions all the time. and we just, share our information with them. And then we started our podcast just kind of as like a creative outlet and just to have fun talking about all the bullshit that we run into with as real estate investors. And then that just opened up the doors to a larger audience and more desire for it. And so our coaching program has like the first tier we call like the Jumpstart program, which is like, if you have zero real estate knowledge, like it's like $100, go buy it. It's going to teach you all the basic systems within real estate that you need and hopefully prepare you to start thinking about the next level. And then which is our 7-figure real estate investor. And that's where it's just a group mastermind. We have weekly calls. We have one-on-one coaching with people. And literally you get our course and you go through it's a Kajabi course. So you just watch all the videos and then you're part of our community. And that's for people that will literally just want to start a off-market real estate business where they can, acquire properties, buy and hold. Basically what we would say is like, keep the best, wholesale the rest. So that wholesaling is what's going to keep your acquisition machine running. And then beyond that's our partnership program, which is where there's people that they don't want to they don't have the time. Maybe they're like you, like I've got this full-time gig. This is my bread and butter, but I do want to buy properties and I want to buy them at a discount. And so they partner with us to go and either we just do the marketing for them and you basically would do the sales, or we actually will do the marketing and sales for you for a different fee, to where you just get a contract to buy a property and you get to choose what you want to do with it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's done for you. So that's where you guys really honed in the marketing. Like,
yep.
You know the list to try first. You know how to test the list, because I'm sure each market is a little bit different, but people respond. I remember when I did one mailing in the Midwest, I got 1 million calls because nobody was mailing in Indiana where I was buying properties versus like the West Coast. They're getting hit more. So you test the markets and then it just becomes a numbers game, right? And then at some point, like sometimes putting more money into it doesn't make more sense. It's like, oh no, let's keep it at this level, because if we go more money, we're not getting the same ROI. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And that's the thing we've learned. We tell people that want to join like our mastermind group that we're like, let us save you the $20,000 that you're going to spend on marketing that you don't need to, because we tried and did everything. And that's one thing that I will, really give us credit for is we test and retest and we try and we fail fast. Like we will quit something so quickly if we're like, you know what, this is not worth our time, we're not doing it. But we spent the money, we've learned about it, and we said, nope, that's not going to work. And we've kind of cut through all the noise with anything in real estate. There's all this noise, shiny object syndrome. Do I do STRs? Do I do long-term? Do I syndicate? We've cut through all that noise from a marketing perspective so that you can dial in and get what you want. And like you said, we found out the hard way multiple times, the more you spend, that does not correlate to a 1-to-1. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. And so there is like this sweet spot. We usually tell people like a good monthly rate for most markets, from an ROI standpoint, is probably about like 5,000 letters. Like, so you should send about 5,000 letters, and that's a good starting point. You can go up depending on your market size and you can go down a little bit, but like right there is kind of a good sweet spot. And then we also know, like, we have copywriters that are, writing really good copy on our letters, and we know which letters and postcards to send that we have found over time, because we've tried multiple vendors. We've tried multiple different types of copies. And so that's kind of where we found that like we have like the upper hand in the skill set, because we've just done so much of it in the last few years. And
you kind of have to have, if you want to go at this, you kind of got to figure out what your budget's going to be, because it's going to be like probably minimum of 4 months before you get any traction, but probably more realistic 6 to 8 months into the mailing, right? Because
we tell people, so we tell people like, don't get discouraged. Sign up for 90 days. Do 90 days. 30 days, you're going to get leads. But because of a deal cycle, and a typical real estate deal cycle too. So say you get someone that raises their hand in that first 30 days and calls you. Well, typically with an escrow period and negotiation period, you're still not going to close a deal within 90 days. It takes time. And you also have to like build this backlog of leads up, which is where we also, again, feel like we have an upper hand, is we have really solid follow-up systems with which any sales process, if you don't have solid follow-up systems, as well as I do, like you have so many deals falling through the cracks because you're just not following up and you're only hitting the low-hanging fruit, which are the people that rarely call you. But when they call you, they're like, I need to sell my house tomorrow. Will you buy it for this price? And you're like, hell yeah, that works for me. Like you're going to get those low hanging fruit, but it's that follow-up system. And so once you get past that 90-day period, now you have a backlog of leads that you can follow up with. And it's just a numbers game at that point. The more leads you get, there's like some really good KPIs that we track from like how many leads come in, to conversions, that convert to appointments, that convert to offers, that convert to deals closed.
And what is that magic number? Is it like 2,000 letters? Yeah, like what do you think it averages out to, like 2,000,
Right.
3,000, 5,000 letters to get one deal closed?
Right. That's a great point. So right now, our actual cost, we track it by cost per deal, which you can correlate to letters, which are about say $1 a letter, is about $3,200 on the direct mail side. So if you spend $3,200, you should be looking to get one deal closed. And for us in our business, our average wholesale fee is $27,000, which does not account for when we go and buy a house or like a building for $100,000 below market, or doesn't account for the flip profit, which might be 60, 70,000. That's just what we tack on as our wholesale fee. So for us, $3,200 spend, $27,000 or revenue is not too bad in numbers.
No, not at all. That's
right.
Yeah. So I think going in, for somebody that might not have a bunch of money sitting around, where that's pretty fair to say. So that, like, okay, you're going to spend probably $6,000 in postage and mailing the month 1, month 2, month 3. So you really need like $30,000.
Yeah, I would say,
to get the yeah, sure, you can bootstrap it, like, but that's going to be the slower way, where you're being specific, you're doing the letters yourself, but if you want to start out, you need 30 to 50 grand allocated for this to get some traction.
I would say absolutely. So to do it right, I think it's not, so you could feasibly, like, if you just think about it from a mailing standpoint, from a letter, say you're spending, you have a budget of $5,000 a month, you could do this for 15 grand, no problem. But if you want to give yourself like a good runway of 6 months and just say, hey, I'm going to try this, give yourself $5,000 a month to be safe. And within that $5,000, you can kind of like give yourself $500 to $600 for different things, like your CRM, for PropStream, which we use for like pulling down data and comping properties and all that sort of stuff. Have some services, I guess, budget in there for you. But yeah, there's no such thing. I don't know where people get this, is like this no money down real estate. That doesn't exist. But what people on our side of things don't see is like, yeah, so you spent $5,000 a month for 6 months, 30 grand, and you just bought a duplex for $100,000 below value. Sure, you're gonna put some money into it, fix it up a little bit, and then you're gonna refinance. But you're gonna have $0 into that deal, and now you just learned how to get deals at a discount and how to BRRRR a property, how to do all that sort of stuff, which is invaluable. And that's kind of where we're coaching people. And once that clicks for people, like, oh man, I got to spend a little money, because there is no such, real estate is asset intensive. Like there's no such thing as free real estate. I don't know where you really get that from. I mean, yeah, there is the edge cases that you can do that, but we haven't found it yet. You at least needed money up front. You might not have any money left in that deal when you're done, but you needed money up front to get to that, or a shit ton of hustle.
Yeah, right. I mean, you could be lucky and maybe find a good sub 2 opportunity where you can walk in with no cash and sign the. I mean, there are those cases, and like if
you can't build a business off of that.
Right. It's a onesie twosie thing, and you got kind of lucky on the deal, finding a great opportunity.
Yeah.
On like that. I mean, ideally, if you did that and you made a $50,000 assignment for your first deal, you're a home run. But that's not going to happen all the time. Yep. So this is just a kind of a tried and true business model. That like, you're going to spend X amount. We're going to do this much letters. Like everything will be tracked. Every market's going to have a different, I might have to spend 5,000 or 6,000 to get that lead, or maybe I spend 1,500, and maybe my average profit is 39,000 versus 27,000, right? Like that's all the things. I think the one challenging part, if you do this remotely, like, because I always thought about doing this in Indiana, just because I think like I could crush it there, and I own some rentals. You
can.
The hard part for me was setting up like figuring out, because the markets are harder to comp with the older housing, is to figure out like where to go in, to leave enough, meat on the bone. You got to get really good if you're doing that virtually.
Yeah.
That's like the tough part I see.
Yeah.
Like locally, I have the MLS. I could do that.
Yeah.
And it's like easy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's where, we've done really well for our business when we went virtually is we were able to, because we saw it kind of in our markets. And then we also know people all over the country doing the same thing. So we're able to kind of test with them and say, hey, what's going on here? Why does this deal look so good? Is it really that good? And so going in there and actually understanding that, like understanding how to comp properties, that is such a good skill to have, because once you learn how to do it, you start looking at things differently. Like I just remember distinctly, we were in Ohio this last summer, comping properties. And I'm like, okay, so this person wants to sell me their house for $30,000. And there is a comp 1 block away for like 150,000, but then there's all these other like houses sitting on the MLS at like 25,000. Like it's kind of in the same area. Well, all I did was I called. So what we do when we're running our own stuff in markets is we always get a runner. So somebody that can go take photos, somebody that can like, facilitate contract signing or whatever we need. We usually pay him like $50, $75 an appointment. So we had a lady over there that we found on one of the Facebook groups. She was awesome. I mean, she knew what she was doing. So she would go and take photos. So I would just text her, I'm like, hey, what's going on in this neighborhood? She's like, oh yeah. Yeah. So the reason why 1 block away sucks is because of this. You go over that street, it's, you start learning the defining lines and you talk to a few agents and you learn the right zip codes that are super desirable. So then you can start quickly filtering out the noise and saying, so it's like, whenever I get a zip code in northeast part of town, I know that's worth really digging in and pursuing and negotiating a little bit tougher with that seller, because I know I have buyers for it. That takes a little bit of time. And like you're saying, you can't just do it. You have to at least spend the time to kind of learn about the market and do it. And that's also, again, why we try to partner with somebody that has that local knowledge, whether it's an agent, whether it's another investor, a flipper or whatever, because then you at least have that like, no, that's not a deal. You're wasting your time.
Hi, this is Beau, host of the Investor Financing Podcast. Are you a real estate investor with properties and you're trying to figure out how to refinance or grow your existing real estate business? Need some clarity and a game plan for moving forward? I'm offering a free strategy call where we dive deep on your real estate investing goals. I'll help you come up with a strategic finance plan that will help you get to where you want to go. Whether you've got a portfolio of 30 properties or you're starting out with your first property, I have a framework that has helped many investors grow. If you're interested, book a call below in the Calendly link. Did you ever do any wholesales, or is it just easier to assign than take them down and kind of list them?
Yeah, we did one last year. It was so awesome. We made like $65,000 on it. We closed on it. How did this work? So we closed on it one day, and the very next day had it back in escrow to a buyer, and it was through an agent. So we work a lot with agents, especially this last year. The market everywhere is crazy. I mean, if you had a pocket listing, agents, they would almost pay you just to look at the address, right? Like they were hungry. And so what we had in our market here was we had quite a few opportunities where we had hungry agents, and they're like, I have buyers. They will put elbow grease into the house, right? They're like, it just has to be able to pass FHA or conventional inspection, all that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, we had one where it looked like crap, like when we walked it, because it was just full of garbage. And so all we did was the people moved out like 2 weeks before closing. So we coordinate with them. Hey, can we send in our junk out guys? Yep. Send in our junk out guys. They junked it out. I called an agent that I knew had a buyer. They walked it. They're like, yeah, we want it. So we closed it, went in escrow the next day and closed within a month and made $65,000. All we did was like pay $500 to clean it out. So yeah, we do that. It's a great model. And in some other markets, it works better where there's like, I would say lower cost, like Vinyl Village homes, where the margins are a little tighter, but they're newer homes. So there's just less headache and less of an opportunity for a problem to pop up during an inspection.
For somebody that's listening out there and kind of wrapping this up, but giving some excitement, where do you think the biggest opportunities for, maybe they've done a couple deals, but they're really trying to grow? What are the opportunities that you see that are going to be present in 2023 that might not have been here before?
Right. So here's one thing that I'm loving about the market right now, at least in our home market, and I think this is for everybody, is pay attention to the MLS. There's some good deals out there. And I'll just explain one thing. The one thing I'm looking on MLS right now for are double lots in my town where it's a 1950s, 60s home. It's not eye catching. It hasn't been fully updated, but it's a nice move-in ready home that is on we have some of these infill lots where at some point in time they bought the house and they decided they got the lot next door, and they maybe made it all one lot to lower their taxes or something. So you can do what we call a lot line adjustment and split it back out. And it takes like 2 weeks. It's no time. Or I'll even buy one. Like we just bought one last year that we did this subplat on. And so we have 2 lots that we did out of it. It took like 12 months and all that. We'll still do that. But right now I'm looking for that like basic cookie cutter 1950s, 60s house. Again, not eye catching, but it has that larger lot because I can split that off and then I can sell that lot off. So say I buy the house for what is retail now, which is actually a really great deal in my opinion. Say I buy it for $275, say it rents for just under $2,000 a month without having to do any work to it. Then I can take that lot next door. And in our town right now, we can build a triplex on that lot. So that lot's worth 100, 125 to a builder. So now I've either lowered my price point into that house by 100, 125,000, or I just gave myself an opportunity to build a triplex, start getting into land development, stuff like that. So that's what I'm looking for. And so to close this out is like, pay attention to MLS and look for those unique finds, because now people are getting so desperate. Those unique finds aren't getting the same eyes because there's not as many buyers out there right now on the retail side or investor side. Like in our market, like there's no flipper buyers because it's a hard time to flip right now. Yeah. Right. But if you can look for those unique deals, you don't have to spend any money. You just have to spend time. You'll find something out there. Guarantee it. That's some really good advice. Guys, I hope you loved this episode as much as I did. Dan, where can they find out about your mastermind? What's the website? Yeah, sure. They can go to collectingkeyspodcast.com or just hit me up on Instagram. That's where I'm like most prevalent. Investor Man Dan. Awesome. All right, guys. I know I'm super motivated. Hope you guys are too. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot, Dan, for being on the show. See ya. Hey guys, Beau Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.